I never expected that on the day of my wedding, Victor's female assistant would fall from the hotel ceiling right onto me. She was wearing a wedding dress, holding a bouquet, just like me. The moment she crashed down, the entire venue erupted into chaos. I stood frozen, horror gripping me as my feet felt like they were glued to the ground. Then, with a sickening thud, I was hit and pinned beneath her. In an instant, my mouth and nose filled with blood. All around me was noise, screams, confusion. But through it all I heard Victor shouting not my name but hers. Helen. He came rushing toward us, not to help me but to her. My hand, still clutching the bouquet, was pierced by the sharp thorns of the roses, but I didn't let go. Even then I reached for him, my fingers stretching toward the man I'd loved for 8 years, known for 15. I had always believed I was his first choice, his only choice. But when he reached us, he didn't help me. He picked up Helen, cradling her in his arms, and in doing so, he stepped hard on my hand. That moment, something inside me shattered. The Victor who once stood at my parents' graves, promising to love and protect me for life, felt like he had already died. "Helen, how are you?" he asked, his voice breaking. They held each other tightly, their bodies soaked in my blood, and yet they were lost in each other. I watched as Victor's tears fell uncontrollably. He was heartbroken for her. He caressed her face, his hand trembling, and in that moment I knew. He loved her. There was no doubt. Helen didn't say a word. They just locked eyes, and I realized that this love, this obsession, had long consumed any sense of duty or loyalty he ever had toward me. He didn't care about our families, our friends, or the vows we were about to make. In the suit I had designed with my own hands, he embraced Helen, the third party in our marriage. When the ambulance finally arrived, I was still lying on the ground, forgotten. Everyone had gathered around them. Some were taking photos, excited, as if this were a scene from a drama. Others were Helen's longtime colleagues, cheering silently, clearly rooting for the two of them to finally be together. And me. I was just an orphaned soul, left alone on that shattered glass walkway. "Save me," I whispered. The words cut through my throat like glass, each syllable tearing at my heart. After calling out several times, Victor finally turned his head. Eyes met. I saw panic deep in his gaze, and for a fleeting second I thought maybe, just maybe, guilt would move him to help me. But then he shouted, "The one who fell from the height is Helen. Get her to the hospital first." By the time the medical staff came to check on me, he had already used his connections to get Helen transferred ahead of me. I was left behind waiting. The nurse who examined me looked at my wedding dress and scoffed. The mistress dares to show up in a wedding dress, forcing the real wife to jump off a building. How disgusting. Clearly, her husband loves the real wife more. I don't know what this mistress is thinking. I wanted to speak, to scream that I was the fiancé, that I was the one betrayed, but my throat had lost its function. A searing pain shot through my head, and before I could say anything I collapsed. When I came to, I was being rushed into emergency surgery. The hemorrhage in my brain was extensive. Doctors surrounded me, shining bright lights into my pupils, searching for signs of life. "Why is it taking so long? If it gets any later, we might as well push her to the morgue," one said. "We had no choice," another replied. The scene was too chaotic, and the first ambulance was delayed in traffic. I clearly heard Victor stop my attending physician as I was being wheeled in. "Hello, are you Dr. Chen, the neurosurgery expert? My girlfriend's condition is more serious. Can you go see her first? I can offer a higher price." This hospital was partly his investment. Several doctors knew him well. And when he dropped to his knees, begging, they couldn't refuse. The director reassigned the specialist to Helen's case and gave me a different surgeon. Throughout the entire operation, I was aware of nothing but darkness. I fell into a deep coma. Occasionally, I caught fragments of words, but I couldn't tell if they were real or dreams. After the surgery, I was sent to the ICU, hovering between life and death. And in that fragile state, Victor deleted our marriage announcement from social media. Then a new photo surfaced, him and Helen holding their marriage certificate, smiling brightly. The image of me beside him had been erased, replaced by her. When I finally regained enough strength to open my phone, the nurse handed it to me. That's when I saw it all, the post, the lies, and a message from Victor. After you get out of the hospital, pack your things and leave. Helen doesn't want to see you. Asterisk the wedding house I had spent months choosing, the home I had decorated with love. It was me who had to walk away. The emotional turmoil worsened my condition, and I was rushed back into emergency care. Inside the operating room, whispers spread like wildfire. I was the third party, they said. I had forced Victor into marriage. I had driven Helen to attempt suicide. We all know Helen has been with Victor since he started his business, someone said. Now that he's successful, some dirty thing is trying to latch on. Another added. I heard she jumped from the iron railing that was being renovated at the hotel. How desperate. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Medical staff aren't supposed to judge, but as humans they couldn't help it. From that moment on, I became the villain in their eyes. Disdained, isolated, left to suffer in silence. Then Victor's parents came to visit. The moment they pushed open the ward door, they burst into tears. Lily, how did things end up like this? Weren't you supposed to be getting married today? His father said. They had rushed back as soon as they finished a project overseas. As he scrolled through his phone, his expression darkened. Don't worry, he said. That woman will never set foot in our house. Before leaving, his mother hugged me tightly. We promise you, we'll treat you like our own daughter. Even if he's our son, we won't show him any favoritism. She wiped her tears and left. In the days that followed, they came every day, taking care of me without hesitation. I knew why. Years ago, my parents had risked their lives to save theirs during an accident. Without my parents, their family of 3 wouldn't have survived. I didn't blame them for anything. They had always been kind to me from the very beginning. Eventually, the medical staff learned the truth, that I was Victor's childhood fiancée, the one who had grown up with him, and that Helen, the woman he kept calling his girlfriend, was actually the other woman. Once Victor's carefully hidden lie was exposed, the staff's attitude shifted. At least Victor's parents are on your side, one nurse said. If they don't approve of that woman, you still have a chance. Wait until you get out, then go after him. They even started planning ways for me to win him back. But one night, unable to sleep from the pain, I got up to go to the bathroom. And I overheard Victor's parents talking. Victor, you're being too reckless, his mother said. You can play around, but at least wait until you get the marriage certificate with Lily and inherit her parents' fortune before you do this. His father added, We've been here for half a month, taking care of her. I think she's softened up. You need to divorce that woman first, then get the marriage certificate with Lily. My blood ran cold. So that was it. When I learned the truth, that they cared because of my parents' wealth, over 100 million, I felt like someone was slowly carving into my flesh with a knife. I barely made it back to my bed, leaning against the wall the whole way. Lying there, I finally understood. Since my parents passed away, no one would ever love me for me. The kindness, the promises, it was all about the inheritance. My parents will required me to be married before I could claim anything. That's why they were going to such lengths to treat me well. But Victor hadn't waited. He hadn't held on. A few days later he came, this time for the money. He didn't tell me how, but he had divorced Helen. He nearly knelt at my bedside, begging for forgiveness. It was my fault, Lily. Mom and Dad have talked to me. I know I was wrong. I fired her. No one will come between us again. He showed me Helen's resignation letter, their divorce papers, and then, finally, the ring he had used to propose to me years ago. He tried to slide it onto my finger. You're my childhood sweetheart. How can some outsider compare to that? His parents stood beside him, pleading. A reformed prodigal is worth more than gold. Can you give him one more chance? They took turns urging me to say yes. I didn't respond. I just followed the doctor's orders, focusing only on getting better. Victor came every day after that, taking care of me without complaint. Time passed. Even though I hadn't forgiven him, the other patients in the ward had already forgiven him for me. Men make mistakes, one said. Your husband comes every day, does everything without a word. Look at mine, he acts like he's dead. I envy you. Another added. It's just a little affair. Your in-laws are on your side. It's not that big a deal. Give him a chance. One evening I sipped the porridge Victor had made for me, watching messages pop up on my phone. Is the porridge I made tasty? Victor will come later. We're still in bed. Asterisk. I was so tired last night. Victor came to see you. He told me he wishes you were dead. Asterisk. I said that's not good, sister. You're really pitiful. I feel so sorry for you. By the way, I went to see you today. You were asleep but Victor and I kissed by your bedside. It was quite thrilling. Asterisk. One message after another. No need to guess. I wasn't asleep when it happened. The hospital notified me I could be discharged the day after tomorrow. Victor and his parents immediately made plans. Victor and I would go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get our marriage certificate. Good child, his mother said earnestly. Listen to your uncle and aunt just this once. We won't harm you. I still needed a wheelchair to get around. I knew I couldn't fight them, so I nodded. They were overjoyed. That night I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Would you like to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau with me the day after tomorrow to get our marriage certificate? The voice on the other end agreed, without hesitation. The next morning, after I'd finished the discharge paperwork, I waited in my hospital room for Victor and his family to arrive. I sat there, quiet and still, watching the clock. They were supposed to come early but no one showed up. I tried calling but the line just rang, no answer. My hands were still weak, but I managed to wheel myself out of the room, slowly making my way down the hall to the hospital's taxi pickup area. Just as I flagged down a cab, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Helen. I didn't open it at first. I handed the driver the address and settled in. But the phone kept ringing again and again, all from her. Finally I gave in and opened the message. It was a photo. There she was, smiling, holding Victor's hand at a prenatal clinic. She was pregnant. The whole family, Victor, his parents, was there with her, beaming. The caption read, "Oh no, sister, seems they've forgotten that today's your wedding day with Victor. All they care about now is the baby in my belly." Asterisk, she added. Don't worry, I'll remind Victor. Just wait a moment. Asterisk. I didn't reply. I just stared out the window as the city passed by. When the car pulled up to the Civil Affairs Bureau, I took a deep breath. The moment I opened the door I saw him, Jason, walking toward me. He didn't say much. Just came over, gently helped me lower the wheelchair, and supported me as I settled into it. Have you thought it through? He asked quietly. He nodded. Without another word we went inside. The whole process moved smoothly, without hesitation. When it was over and the official stamp clicked down, Jason reached into his pocket and pulled out a small bag of wedding candies. He handed them out to the staff with a quiet smile. I looked at him, surprised. This wasn't the kind of thing I expected from him. He'd always been reserved, never one for gestures. But he just turned to me and said, "Don't worry. I know why you're doing this. And when the time comes, if you want a divorce, I won't make it hard for you." After he spoke, he pushed my wheelchair back to the car. I gave him the address, the house Victor and I were supposed to share. We won't be meeting them, will we? Yes. No, he said. We won't. As soon as I stepped out of the hospital, Helen had already sent another message. Victor and his parents were busy house hunting for her. They were signing papers for a villa, one meant just for her and the baby. They didn't have time to think about me. Not anymore. Jason and I have known each other for over 10 years. He was one of the few male friends I ever had, though Victor never liked him. Because of that, we kept our distance. Just polite, occasional contact. I never thought he'd say yes when I asked him to marry me. I expected hesitation, questions, maybe even a refusal. But he agreed without a second thought. Sitting in the passenger seat, I watched his reflection in the window. "Aren't you afraid I'll cling to you and never let go?" He asked. "What if I refuse to divorce later?" He didn't look at me. Just smiled faintly, like a parent soothing a child. "That," he said, "would actually be a good thing." The car fell silent after that. When we arrived at the house, he came in with me to help pack. I took everything that was mine, clothes, books, keepsakes. Then I destroyed the rest. Every photo of Victor and me I cut apart. Our matching outfits I burned. Even the handmade porcelain cup he once gave me as a gift. I smashed it to pieces on the floor. Just as I was tearing up the last picture, my phone buzzed. It was Victor. "Lily, I'm so sorry. Something came up at home. Let's move the wedding to tomorrow." Asterisk right after his parents messaged. "Lily, someone in the family passed away. We can't leave. We'll pick you up tomorrow." Asterisk. I didn't respond. I just sat there staring at the screen. Then one by one I blocked them all. After everything I contacted a lawyer. Back when my parents were alive, our families were business partners. My parents were the main investors. After they died in an accident, I was left alone. Still a minor. Victor's family took me in, raised me until I turned 18. All those years, my parents' trust fund quietly supported Victor's growing business. Over a decade of financial backing, without anyone saying thank you. Without anyone remembering where it came from. I entrusted my parents' old friend, Lawyer Chen, to help me reclaim what was owed. I also followed Victor's past advice. Only this time it was against him. He'd once pushed me to sell my shares to a third party, to withdraw from his projects. Now I used that move to cut all ties. Once the legal work was done, I withdrew the full 100 million inheritance my parents had left me. When it was over, Lawyer Chen looked at me and smiled. "I didn't expect the one who'd end up with you wasn't Victor but Jason. You should have known. Men understand men best. He must have brought other women to consult you about your inheritance more than once, didn't he?" He paused. "After your parents died, all those so-called bonds vanished. Everyone saw an orphan girl with money. And they took advantage. I thought about that as I looked at Jason. "I'll give you a portion of the money," I said. "I don't trust men. Not even you." I couldn't understand the man I lived with for years. How could I understand you? Jason didn't react. No anger, no protest. He just nodded quietly. Then I asked, "How much do you want?" When we got to the bank, he held up his hand. 10 million. Asked stunned. "Is that all?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a small note from his pocket, sealed in a tiny message bottle. He opened it gently. It was my handwriting. From when we were kids. I'd written him a promise. "When you grow up, you have to help me with one thing, no matter what. And in return, I'll go with you on a trip to the seaside." Asterisk. I stared at it, then burst out laughing. That's why he said yes so quickly. That's why he didn't ask for money. "You won't regret it." Yes. "No," he said. "But if we go now, you'll probably have to take care of me. I'll be the one who can't walk properly." Smiled. He smiled back. After everything was settled, I took Jason to a quiet island for a vacation. With Victor we traveled so little. Just a handful of times, mostly business trips where I tagged along. Hotels, meetings, cold cities. This time was different. We arrived early at the airport, sat side by side, waiting. I scrolled through my phone absent-mindedly. That unknown number tried again. "Sister, please give them back the money. Victor's going crazy. How can you be so heartless?" Asterisk. I didn't reply. I blocked it just like the rest. Then I changed my SIM card on the plane. At that moment I felt it, no more ties. No more weight. When we landed, it was evening. We went to a seaside restaurant famous for its sunset views. Jason suddenly suggested taking a photo of me. I hesitated. With Victor, photos were always a chore. He'd complain, say I didn't look good, blame the lighting. But I'd seen the pictures he took of Helen. Soft, careful, full of love. "Is it ready?" I asked nervously. No reply. I called his name again. Still nothing. Finally I turned around. The sky exploded with fireworks. Heart-shaped balloons floated above, some with my name tied to them. The ground was covered in rose petals. And there on one knee was Jason, holding a ring. "Since we're married," he said, "we should do this properly." I walked over, nodded, and let him slide the ring onto my finger. He stared at it for a long time, his smile growing wider. Later I saw the drone show. Hundreds of lights in the sky, forming scenes from our years together. Little moments I'd forgotten. That's when I realized. This wasn't just a favor to him. This wasn't just a contract. He'd been waiting. He'd been ready. He didn't pressure me to say, "I love you." For half a month we traveled, slowly shifting from friends to something more. And for the first time I didn't feel like I had to guard my heart. I still didn't trust easily, but I was willing to try for him. When we returned to the city, we were met by chaos. Reporters, cameras, people shouting. Jason was known as the Golden Bachelor, a successful single man the media loved. And now the world knew. He'd married the woman he'd loved since childhood. I pulled a mask over my face, slipped through the crowd. Jason stayed close, his hand never leaving my side. As we got into the car, his phone rang. I saw the number, one I knew too well. "Victor." Jason looked at me. I gave a small nod. He answered. On the other end, Victor's voice slurred. "You brat, after all these years you just go and get married. Bring your wife over. We're having a class reunion. I'll send you the address. You have to come." Maybe his business was failing. Maybe he was desperate. But in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. My life was no longer his to interrupt. The car was quiet after Jason answered the call. I watched his profile. Calm, composed, not the least bit shaken by Victor's drunken demands. He didn't say much on the phone. Just a few low words, then a simple, "I'll think about it," before ending the call. I expected him to toss the phone aside, to say something bitter or sarcastic. But he didn't. Instead, he turned to me and asked, "Do you want to go?" I looked out the window. The city lights blurred past, familiar yet distant now, like a life I'd once lived but no longer belonged to. "No," I said softly. "But you should." He raised an eyebrow. "You should go," I repeated, a small smile forming. "Go to the reunion. Walk in alone. Let them see you, happy, successful, married. Let Victor sit there with his pregnant mistress and his crumbling business, watching the man who actually won walk in like he owns the room." Jason stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed, low at first, then full and warm. "You're ruthless," he said, shaking his head. "I like it." A week later I saw the photos online. Jason had gone. Reporters had followed. Of course they did. The Golden Bachelor's sudden marriage was still trending. Cameras flashed. Victor, caught mid-sentence, had frozen like a man seeing a ghost. Helen tried to hide behind her baby bump. Victor's parents avoided the lens, their faces tight with shame. And Jason, he didn't even look at them. He greeted old classmates, signed autographs, smiled for photos, like he wasn't just attending a reunion, but claiming a victory long overdue. The final photo showed him raising a glass, not in toast to the past, but to the future. And taped to the bottom of the frame, barely visible, was a tiny message in handwriting only I would recognize. "I kept my promise. Now it's your turn." I traced the words with my finger and laughed, softly, freely, for the first time in years. Because I had kept my promise. The next morning I booked a one-way ticket. Not back to the city. Not to the house that once held my dreams. But to a quiet coastal village, where the sea meets the sky and no one knows my name. And I left a letter on Jason's doorstep. Because this time I might just say yes to more than a favor. I never looked back. But sometimes late at night I imagine him reading that letter, smiling, packing a bag, and walking toward the sea.